Hey guys, Arch here, a second year medical student, and today I'm joined by Giovanni Elias, who got a 99.9 ATAR last year. Giovanni got 5 merits last year, the Governor Commendation Award, while doing a Head Start university topic and getting a high distinction in that as well, all the while by doing Division 1 soccer and managing a social life and everything like that as well. In this video, we're going to be going through the exact study techniques that you use, your time management skills, removing your points of procrastination, and specifically asking the right questions. So let's just get started with the study techniques. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So essentially when I started studying, I figured out that techniques such as mind mapping, spider mapping, and even using flowcharts are actually really beneficial. Scientifically, our brains are wired in a way that we like to connect ideas as best as possible, and by memorizing and learning textbook definitions, it kind of takes that away, hence why those students don't typically perform as well. It is important to consider that by using mind maps and spider maps, we actually are able to connect ideas even from different subjects like chemistry and biology and how they relate subtopics. So let me provide you with an example. In terms of a subject like biology, it is important to consider the big and small picture of a concept. When we're looking at the levels of organization, you cannot actually understand what the smaller levels are like, for example the cells and the tissues, without understanding the bigger pictures of like the organs and the organ systems and how they function. Effectively, by using spider maps and mind maps, and even in some instances flowcharts, you are able to link all these ideas and how the tissues and the cells are actually affected the structure of the organ and how the organ functions. This is when mind maps are really important, because of heavy content subjects such as biology, you're able to connect all these ideas and be able to recall them quickly in an exam or test scenario.
Yeah, and mind maps are definitely one of the best ways that you can be studying, because it prioritizes the connections and relationships with these pieces of information, which is honestly the most important thing when you're going about understanding things.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's study techniques. Tell us a little bit more about all your time management and that sort of thing, because I think students will be really interested in this sort of stuff.
Yeah, so time management is really important. As I had to train 3 nights a week and play soccer on Saturdays as well, whilst balancing a uni life every single Wednesday, it became really apparent to me that I had limited time. Now, time management isn't about setting up 2-hour blocks for each subject for a 2 to 3 week pre-plan. No, time management is actually about identifying where you're weak for subjects and what needs improving. By doing so, you're able to set yourself up for success in the future and really work on what needs to be worked on. When you're building confidence by answering questions you're really familiar with, you're not actually learning and you're not getting better, and that's not going to help you in the long run when it comes to exam period.
Okay, so let's move on to this point of procrastination. That's a really interesting thing, but I haven't really heard of it too much. So what is that all about?
So the idea of points of procrastination is essentially when you're developing these inefficiencies that are stopping you from performing well, and that's what separates those high achieving students from the rest. This particularly happens in tests when you get stuck on a question and you recognize that, oh, what's happened here, and you've lost a lot of time. That's because you've procrastinated over that question and you've not realized there's another 15 questions left in a test, and then you fall behind. So this is an extremely important consideration when you really want to achieve those good grades and perform at the top of your state.
Yeah, and I think like even without hearing this specific name of like identifying points of procrastination, this is definitely something that I was doing, particularly because the whole idea of like improving is that you have to be extremely reflective and also adaptive in how you approach these particular problems and weaknesses that you identify within yourself so that you can get to that next level. All right, last one for today. How do you actually go about asking the right questions?
When you're asking questions about why you're getting something wrong, it's important to recognize why you're getting something wrong. And that typically is because of the fact that you're not relating that particular content with a context. Now, this becomes extremely important in the later years, because learning content can only get you so far. If you can apply it to a scenario and find a situation where that content you're learning is actually beneficial or has a negative impact, you're then remembering it. So let me provide you with an analogy. If you walk into a room of 10 people and you are asked to remember all of their names, if you're not related to these people, there's no consequence for not remembering their name, and there's no real reason to remember their name, the chances of you actually remembering their names are pretty slim. So this is like subjects with biology and chemistry. When there's content that's quite heavy It's important to be able to relate it to real world scenarios and applicable situations whereby it's more relatable, and then you're able to remember and recall that information more readily in an exam or test scenario.
Yeah, so this is a really good point, particularly because if you're not able to make that information actually relatable to you, your brain's not going to really want to keep that information at all. And so if you actually want to be able to retain things even better, then you need to make it firstly important to you and relevant, and that just makes it a lot easier in the end.
With all these points in mind, it is important to understand that year 12 isn't gonna be a smooth ride. Mine was very rocky. I was hospitalized 2 weeks before my exams, which left me 1 short week left to actually start studying. However, because I've retained all the information throughout the year via these spider maps, mind maps, and flowchart methods, and I was able to actively recall that information during the period of the exam, you know, being sick wasn't the end of the world for me because I was actually able to employ these strategies and these techniques which furthered my study.
All right, thank you so much for that, Giovanni. I think you guys are going to find this pretty useful, and hopefully if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks again so much, Giovanni, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.